History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Hello, you spooktacular people. Welcome to this 411th episode of the History Goes Bump podcast. Ghost Tours for the Theater of the Mind. I am your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, we are going to be going to a bed and breakfast on this episode. This is in the Stockyards in Fort Worth, Texas. It's Miss Molly's bed and breakfast, and a little bit of synchronicity for our listeners who also follow Hillbilly Horror Stories. Jerry and Tracy were just there because they had done a live show down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And one of our listeners, her daughter, happened to be in that area at the same time and actually stayed at the bed and breakfast.
Very cool.
So Amy, who is our listener, recorded her daughter sharing their experiences there and some of the experiences of other people who've stayed there. And you remember how when we went and did the investigation at the Clay County Jail, and it turned out that we had one of the people that was with us had an attachment with them, and we ended up talking to that spirit, we think?
Yes.
Well, we're going to have the same thing happening here.
Very cool. I can't wait.
But before we get into that, we want to welcome into the Spooktacular crew, Rachel, Kathleen, who spells her name very interestingly, Cathlean, and Jillian with a J.
Thank you for joining us in our Facebook group.
And now this moment in Oddity.
There's a peculiar hole in the Al-Mahra province of Yemen known as the Well of Barhoot, but most people call it the Well of Hell. For years, locals have claimed that this is a gateway to the underworld, and that the jinn live within the depths. The truth is that this is a natural sinkhole, and in September of 2021, 10 explorers made their way all the way to the bottom. The explorers found dead animals, snakes, frogs, beetles, waterfalls, and stalagmites. Another claim about the hole is that it's part of a supervolcano that could one day wipe out the Earth, similar to the one that is claimed to be below Yellowstone National Park. The explorers found no evidence for that either. The most unusual find were cave pearls, which are very unique and rare because they need a completely flat surface in order to form. These are formed when dripping or flowing water gathers around a nucleus of loose material and deposits minerals in concentric layers. Since the nucleus is loose, the shape of a pearl forms. The Well of Hell may not be a prison for the jinn, but it certainly is odd.
Scared yet? Boo!
And now this month in history.
In the month of November, on the 8th in 1965, Lawrence Joel was awarded the Medal of Honor, becoming the first living person of color to do that since the Spanish-American War. Lawrence Joel was serving as a medic with the 1st Battalion, 503rd Airborne Infantry, 173rd Airborne Brigade during the Vietnam War. He was with his unit in the Iron Triangle northwest of Saigon when his heroism earned him the medal. The unit was outnumbered and under heavy assault, and Specialist Joel received a severe leg wound. This didn't stop him from taking care of his wounded comrades, and he continued his work despite being hit a second time with a bullet lodging into his lung. He didn't stop treating the wounded until his evacuation was ordered. President Lyndon B. Johnson presented the Medal of Honor to Specialist Joel on March 9, 1967, at the White House.
Miss Molly's Bed and Breakfast has been on the suggestions list for a while, And we decided to produce it now because our longtime listener and executive producer, Amy Martinez's daughter, recently visited the location and had a chance to investigate. A sign outside one of the rooms reads, "Street ladies bringing in sailors must pay for room in advance." So clearly this wasn't always a simple little hotel. This was once a brothel, and many of the spirits from that time back in the early 1900s are still sticking around the bed and breakfast. Join us as we explore the history and hauntings of Miss Molly's Bed and Breakfast.
The most famous and popular spot in Fort Worth, Texas is the Stockyards. This is a National Historic District in what was once dubbed Cowtown because 4 million head of cattle were driven through here between 1866 and 1890. When the railroad came to town, it only made sense to establish Fort Worth as a shipping point for livestock, and the Union Stockyards were built.
That's a lot of cow pies.
Ew, I hadn't thought about that.
Even if they look dry, don't you step on them.
But then how do you toss them?
Just don't. Just don't.
You know what? We could come up with a new game. You know how everybody plays that cornhole?
I'm not participating.
You know where I'm going?
I do.
Wealthy Boston businessman Greenleaf Simpson decided to invest in the stockyard, and he renamed it the Fort Worth Stockyards Company. Simpson sought out other investors, and one man he approached suggested that they build meatpacking plants in the city rather than shipping the cattle off to other markets. 2 large meatpacking plants would be built around 1900. Around this time, the Wall Street of the West would be built too, which was the livestock exchange building that housed the railroad offices, telegraph offices, and livestock commission companies. In 1907, the Cowtown Coliseum was built for rodeos and stock shows.
In 1911, the Stockyards became their own city known as Niles City, which eventually was annexed into Fort Worth. Droughts, floods, and fires would come. The Stockyards would be rebuilt with flame-resistant materials. The business prospered through it all until World War II. The railway business was in decline, and the highway system was growing with the trucking business that made small stockyards and meat packers able to pull business their way. The first meatpacking plant, Armour, closed in 1962, and the other, Swift, closed in 1971. In 1976, the district earned protection, and restoration began on various landmarks, with the Exchange Building becoming a museum in 1989. The area has become a shopping and dining district with the Star Cafe in the midst of it, and the restaurant has Miss Molly's Bed and Breakfast located above the eatery.
The building that houses the bed and breakfast today was built in 1910 as a high-class boarding house and was called the Palace Rooms. By the time Prohibition rolled around, the building had changed hands and reopened as the Oasis, with rooms and, of course, a speakeasy. The authorities looked the other way most of the time, but there was the occasional raid. The nice boarding house was gone by the 1940s and replaced with a bordello called the Gavitt Hotel. And I have a feeling when it was a speakeasy, it might have been a brothel, too.
More than likely.
I don't know for sure, because the history on this place is very slim, but usually that's the way it ran.
If you're bringing up sailors, you better pay in advance.
All types came through, from cowboys to businessmen to the really shady types. Eventually, Texas outlawed prostitution, and the building was on the market once again. It reopened as a Star Cafe on the ground floor and Miss Molly's Bed and Breakfast on the upper floor, as we said.
The bed and breakfast has 8 rooms with 1 communal bathroom.
Why did you say ew before you said that?
Because I don't like sharing bathrooms with people.
I don't either. That's my only thing about bed and breakfast, and the one that we've stayed in. We made sure we had our own.
Yes. I don't know what it is. I just don't. It's just not for me.
Well, it's even worse if you're in an Airbnb because, well, the cleanliness is kind of up to
the owner of the location.
And I stayed in one that clearly a bachelor was living in.
Oh. The former madam's room is known as Miss Josie's room, and it has its own private bath.
So we'll just stay in the madam's room there.
There you go. The other rooms are Cowboys, Miss Amelia, Cattleman's, Rodeo, Gunslinger, and Railroader. The rooms are decorated in a manner that takes one back with lace curtains, antique oak furniture, and historic quilts, iron beds, and shutters. Miss Josie's room has elegant Victorian decor with elaborate wall coverings and window dressing, and the ceiling is draped fabric. The bathrooms have iron tubs, pedestal sinks, and pull-chain toilets.
Stories of unexplained experiences have plagued this location for years, and many claim that it is one of the most haunted spots in Texas. Guests and employees claim to see shadow figures and to feel cold spots. The scent of perfume is on the air occasionally. Coins apport into rooms that have been cleaned. Belongings disappear or are moved around and found in odd places. Sometimes after they disappear, they reappear in the spot from which they'd been missing. Toilets flush on their own, lights turn on and off by themselves, and doors lock and unlock by themselves. Sometimes doors won't open as if blocked by an unseen force. A reporter staying overnight once awoke to find a beautiful blonde woman sitting on the edge of the bed. There's a young girl spirit that has appeared in the private rooms of the owners. She appears to be around 8 years old. And those coins apporting into rooms, one maid actually quit over that because she would clean a room and then I don't know if people would be checking in and be like, there's coins all over the bed and stuff like that. And then she'd get in trouble maybe, and it kept happening.
I thought that was something that meant that somebody you cared about on the other side was coming in contact with you.
If nothing else, they might be tipping her. They just,
there you go.
The ghost got to get it together and do it before she leaves the room.
Innkeeper Paula Gowans told CBS 11, "I've had many reports from guests of seeing things, transparencies, and smoky apparitions. Like in this room, Ms. Josie King was the last madam. She had been sighted many times, usually at 3 a.m. at the foot of the bed watching the people sleep. We only had one couple jump out of bed."
Well, at least they're keeping track.
They're probably just covering their heads with their sheets.
Techspart Paranormal LLC had investigated at Miss Molly's in November of 2008, and they have great notes on their website about that investigation. One passage reads, "Entered room 5 at 8:08 p.m. We encountered a female spirit who was 42 years of age, and she believed the current year was 1946. She said she entertained men in this bedroom. This female spirit thought she was still alive. After initial connection with the spirit, my hair on the back of my head was caressed." And I think it was a guy who was writing that, so maybe she was trying to come onto him. I'm not sure.
Could be.
At one point, Rosie's right elbow was touched. She mentioned she was upset that her daughter was not with her. She stated that her grandparents raised her daughter, who is still alive, and that she was there waiting for her daughter. At one point, she lay down in the bed in front of us. We did not find out what her name was. We exited the room at 8:30 p.m. Another passage reads, "Investigators reported hearing loud talking and clanking of dishes below them. Interestingly enough, they heard these noises at approximately 9:30 p.m., and the business below had closed at 7 p.m. Upon inspection, no one was left in that business to make such noises. Both investigators also reported hearing someone talking and walking around and shutting doors in room number 8 next to them. No one was ever at any time in room number 8. It was shut off as a control room for recording."
Amy shared in the Spooktacular crew, "My daughter and her fiancé took his little girl to Miss Molly's, a haunted hotel, in the Fort Worth Stockyards last night. His 9-year-old is into that, which makes her my kindred spirit. Anyway, Ross, the fiancé, lost his dad a few years ago. I got this text from my daughter this morning."
We could talk to Ross's dad last night at that hotel. He said his dogs were with him in heaven. Best news ever.
I love that.
So this is what started the ball rolling. So Amy's like, they'd gone there. I was like, well, what happened? And then they went on a car ride together, and Jade recorded them talking about it. Jade and Ross talk about the spirits of 2 little boys and how they seem to be able to leave the room they usually occupy, while the other spirits seem to stick to just the one room they always occupy. And they also relate how the madam would occasionally lock girls in closets. We're going to play that audio for you here.
They have 2 little boys. There is a little boy named Daniel, a little boy named Steven, 12 and 9 years old, very young. And they lived in room 6. She's like, they've kind of claimed that room. And she's like, honestly, I have no idea where they came from. She's like, they have not communicated that to me.
There's no history of them there.
There's no history of them here at this place. I don't know where they came, but that is where they are. This is where they are now. And they kind of are always playing around. Like, she's like, I'm here, I'm running up and down the stairs. And, just like, they're just like playful kids. Like, they'll like move your stuff and, kind of stuff like that. But, just playful. And they're kind of the only ones that go outside of their room. Like typical kids to me, is the way I see it. Like, always kind of playing in the living room and stuff. And then the other ghosts that live there all pretty much stay in their room and don't leave their specific room. 2 lanes to keep right.
Because back when it was a brothel, they were assigned these rooms. They didn't leave the rooms for that reason. Like, there's another little girl that stays in one of the rooms because that's the only place she was allowed to go, because she actually lived there as a little girl. And so was one of the people that worked in the brothel.
Right.
And there's a closet in that room where she would put that little girl when she was working, had guests in her room.
They put her in a closet?
While she had guests there. And she also sold the little girl to the guests sometimes. It was kind of a bad history there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that. There was one room that has the maiden's room, so the head, lady in charge, her name was Josie. That's the only one with an actual bathroom inside of the room. And there was a closet in that room that used to be there that she used to lock the girls in when the girls were in trouble. For apparently days, she said. And so then basically they all had their own rooms. There's a cowboy named Jake, who you can hear his spurs and his boots walking down the hallway. He has, I believe it was room 8 that he goes to, but he's like a Stockyards ghost. Like, they see him in full apparition at some of the bars after they close down, sitting at the bar having a drink.
Oh, that's cool.
Full apparition. The lady who first, there's a YouTube video of it, and she was the original kind of innkeeper. Her name was Diane, I believe.
No, Paula.
Paula. And Paula said that she saw Jake walking into the room, and he walked in the room, and the doors were all open on these little stops. You got to, kick up with your foot. And walked in there and shut that door and locked it and turned on the light. And she said nobody was there, nobody's supposed to be there. So she gets mad, she goes in there, tries to get in the door, and it's locked, so she gets the key out. She said nobody's in the room. And then it happened again, and she said she got real mad the second time, and then she realized it was an actual spirit. It wasn't, she didn't know it was haunted.
And none of the ghosts that are there now, all of them are good spirits. So none of them are dark. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
They're all good and kind and everything like that. They don't really leave their specific rooms. And not each room had like a spirit connected to it directly. Really only like the maiden's room, which was Josie's. And that room is the
little
one
girl's
that
room.
Apparently you can see Josie's apparition laying sitting at the end of your bed.
Standing at the end of your bed when you're sleeping, watching you sleep.
Oh, that's nice.
Massage men's feet while they're sleeping.
You want to sleep in that one?
Creepy.
The people that stayed in that room left
them in the middle of the night last night.
They didn't make it for the night. So I'm assuming they must have seen something. And then the other room,
room 3, I think, was
Emily's room. And that's the little girl, and that room has 2 beds, and one of them was Emily's bed, and the other was the other bed. And then apparently the innkeeper said that at some point, she doesn't know when, it used to just be Emily, but her mother has since come back to stay there with her too. So her mother is in that room with her also. And then later on, there is now a male protector over that room that's in there with them also. They don't know who it is. They don't know if it's a father. They don't know because he hasn't really communicated much with them. He kind of has just said that he is a protector. And
he can't cross over because he committed the ultimate sin.
Yeah, he told the lady that he can't cross over because he committed the ultimate sin.
But he's there to protect the little girl.
And so, what I thought this was very interesting. The woman thinks, she's like, honestly, the innkeeper, she said it was...
After she loosened up a little bit, she told us basically...
Yeah, after she kind of loosened up. It took her a while. She didn't originally say this, but she kind of started to get to know us. She said that she really thinks that protector in that room is actually her brother because he committed suicide. And she said that
he's attached to her.
Innkeeper, she said, he was very, very protective of me and my daughters. And
I can see that.
And she said, even when he was alive, he told me he would never leave me.
In death.
And she's like, I think he's here to be with me because the spirit had told, they had a medium kind of woman from Colombia come in, and the spirit had told that woman that he will not leave until she leaves, the innkeeper leaves. So she's like, I really think it's him coming here to protect those women from me.
He came there for her. She said that basically he's attached to her. He came there for her, and then once he discovered Emily, the little girl, Amelia, then he decided to kind of protect over them.
Yeah,
From the
yeah,
dark
I got
spirits
it.
that come in there
That's
sometimes.
cool.
Yeah, I thought that was, she kind of teared up when she said that, but
Yeah, she started
she,
crying.
That's sweet.
she said she really thinks that it's him protecting that room, and
Basically, if you sleep, it's like a very girly room. That particular room is, and one of the beds is Emily's bed. One of the beds is hers, and the other bed in there is the mom's bed. And the mom's bed's no big deal, but the little girl's bed, two men, basically a dad, his like 10-year-old son, 12-year-old son, something like that, and their 17-year-old nephew rented that room. She's like, I thought it was weird from the get-go when they wanted to rent the room. She's like, because it's an all pink, very girly room. She's like, most people would want the cowboy room right next to it, which was available that night. And she said that they sent her a text at 11:45 that night and saying that they were leaving. They're out. And she said, okay, everything okay? They said, yeah, we'll call you tomorrow. And they left, and they were scared. And the 17-year-old, she said he looked like a grown man. You know, he was tall, he had facial hair. She said he slept in Emily's bed. And he felt an extreme sadness kind of come over him. And shortly after the sadness came over him, he felt hands around his neck choking him. And he...
that must be your uncle.
it was that protector saying,
Yeah.
why are you sleeping in Emily's bed?
He was mad. And I think the sadness was from Emily, personally.
Yeah,
I think it was from her thinking that she had to do something with that guy.
Yeah.
After her telling us the rest of that story.
And then the protector came over and was like choking him.
So they got up and left in the middle of the night.
Protector, all right.
That's not even a dark spirit to him. That's what he's there to do.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I got
he's
you.
protecting that. He's protecting her.
Yeah.
And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends. Kelly, for people who've been listening to this show for a while, they know that you've really gotten yourself into playing this Best Fiends, and now I've downloaded it too. I just couldn't resist.
Mort and I have a blast with that game. So glad you jumped on the bandwagon.
And what's really nice about it is it gives you a little bit of distraction, especially at this time of the year. We're coming into the holidays with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and sometimes you've just got friends and family and all kinds of stuff going on, and you just need to take a little bit of a break and not think about anything and just have some fun. And this is perfect for that.
I love all the little noises that the fiends make.
And the really cool thing about this is if you're in a place that has no Wi-Fi, it's not a problem. You can play Best Fiends wherever and whenever you want in an offline mode.
Yep, absolutely.
This has it all. There's an amazing storyline. As you said, it's got great sound effects.
It sure does. It's so cute.
And the imagery, the animation is spectacular. And, you know, I'm not really a fan of bugs, most people know. But on this, they're cute.
They are cute. And when you evolve them, they get even cuter. But I got to tell you, that boss slug, he is a toughie to get over.
I haven't gotten to a boss slug yet, so...
Oh, just you wait.
I'm not looking forward to it.
You're going to want to evolve those fiends so that you can conquer him.
So what level are you on at this point?
I think I'm on level 122. There's literally thousands of levels, so I have a long way to go, but I'm looking forward to it.
The other great thing, Kelly, is this is free to download. You can download Best Fiends on the App Store or Google Play. And make sure you look for Best Fiends. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends.
You'll be glad you did.
Remember my spooky fiends. That's best friends without the R. Best fiends.
They mention the cowboy Jake and how his spirit manifests too. He is known to hang out in the Stockyards in multiple places. The innkeeper Carrie thinks her brother is there and protecting the little girl's spirit named Emily, and one guest even felt hands closing around his neck one time. So an interesting thing that we have going on here is we have the spirits that are there at the bed and breakfast, and then Carrie, who seems to think that her brother spirit is hanging out in this place. I don't know if this is an attractive place to spirits or what, because we're going to have something else happening here with Ross.
Even though many claim that the spirits here are not evil, that hasn't always been the case, and Jade and Ross share these experiences from the innkeeper and a housekeeper at Miss Molly's.
Like, honestly, I was so scared when I got there, but after I left, I was like, I am not scared at all. Like, because she was, like, talking about how...
She said she was in there one night, came out of the kitchen and saw a very tall, like 7 foot tall, dark she said that she felt anxious. She felt very anxious and sadness and a lot of emotions that she wasn't used to feeling. She said something was off, but she knew something else was there. She didn't know what it was, but something else was there. She said she came out of the kitchen or from the bathroom or somewhere in the hallway that kind of into the foyer, and like a 7 foot tall dark figure walked across the foyer room into, I think, the cowboy room or one of the rooms right across the hallway, and she knew immediately it was a dark demon entity. And she called in a preacher and they blessed the place, and he was kicked out basically.
Yeah, and then another time, Paula, who's like the kind of main lady, she has reservations now. She's been there for a long time. She said that Paula was there sleeping, and she was laying in bed, and she said she felt like someone was literally laying on top of her, suffocating her. And she looked, and she could feel breath on her face, and hands around her neck. And it was a dark spirit there. And she said she was so terrified and choking. She could, the only words, this is the part, after I heard this, I was like, I'm not even scared anymore. That's all I needed to hear. Because she said the only words that she could get out of her mouth was, Jesus, help me. And the second he heard that, the spirit was gone.
Wow.
And out.
She had her priest on speed dial as well, this lady did. She kind of come bless the house and got him out too.
But that's how strong even that, to me, that's why I was like, why are we scared? Like, God's got us. Like,
yeah, and that kind of lets you know
that much stronger than any spirit. They're terrified of him. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not concerned.
So whoever's left there is positive energy.
Yeah, she
right,
also has
nice.
positive energy now.
They're all nice. She said that basically a couple had stayed there the night before we got there, and they stayed in Emily's room. And she said that the guy was throwing his stuff, their brother and sister was throwing the stuff on Emily's bed. And she said, hey, I want to switch that up a little bit. You know, just switch it up. Just trust me on that. That there's no issues. He switched it up, and there's no problems at all.
Emily's are throwing stuff off the bed.
Yeah. Well, they said one person who came in there the night while we were there, the guy was hammered drunk. Like, shouldn't have been there that drunk, and he was sleeping in a room where the covers get pulled off people often. Like, it's like a pretty common thing there. Like, she said that was a room where if it's a guy and a girl were sleeping in the bed, and the girl said that the covers were pulled off of her several times this night. She had to get up out of bed several times to get the covers back on her, but the guy had the covers left on him all night. No issues there. It was a woman.
Wow.
So she thought. Then the other room 6, I think where those other girls were staying, she said that somebody the day before had had some cotton balls and makeup remover and stuff, and when they came back from dinner, the cotton balls were scattered around the room, and the bag was up underneath the bed. Stuff like that.
The room 6 is where the little boys kind of hang out, and so she said they're really mischievous. Like, kind of do that, like move stuff and things like that, but nothing. I mean, they're not trying to hurt.
Nothing scary.
Money. Yeah.
Jade and Ross decide that they want to do some investigating, and they borrow equipment from the innkeeper. And like I said earlier, Kelly, this reminds me of when we were at Clay County Jail, and we had Joe with us, and it seemed like the spirit of her father was communicating with us. So we'll play this audio for you here.
So we hear these stories. She talks to us for a while, and I'm like, McGinnis wanted to do a ghost hunt pretty bad last night. So we're like, eventually I'm like, hey, so do you have this ghost hunting equipment? She was like, yeah. I was like, well, are you using it tonight? She was like, no, you want to use it? And I'm like, yes, I'd love to use it. You show us how to. So she gets out these rods, the copper rods. She gets those out. She gets a couple of those, the dowsing rods, yes. She gets two sets of those and an EMF reader. And she had a spirit box, but it was dead. And so she gets the EMF reader out, she gives it to us, and then she gets the dowsing rods out. Lets us mess around with those, and then you can take back over.
And then she gives us these rods, and McKenna takes a set, and I take a set at first. So we're sitting on the couch, and she's like, just explains to us how to kind of act. And she's like, you can ask him. She's like, honestly, the kids and all the other spirits stay in their rooms, so we're not going to be in the living room able to communicate with them. But Daniel and Steven, she's like, they always come out and do stuff, so just talk to them. And so me and McKenna both were, asking questions like, Steven, are you here with us? And I mean, pretty immediate. Both of us they started playing with the rods and crossing them and talking to us, and we just talked to them for quite a bit, and they were just having a ball and doing all kinds of stuff. And then I had given my set to Ross to mess with, and it was kind of funny because
They didn't like me.
they didn't. Well, I think what it was is it was a man, and they're young kids, you know.
Whereas a girl in McKenna, they weren't
Yeah,
scared
a little girl, you know, she's playing, she's a little girl, and then to me, I'm a woman that's somewhat of, to them they see a motherly type figure, they're not scared of me, I'm not an intimidation.
Or maybe they do look at you like,
And then, but with Ross, and she said, you know, they can kind of take a minute to warm up to men. And
probably didn't trust
to people in general, but men especially.
Maybe they didn't trust men very much.
Yeah, I would imagine.
You don't know their story, but like for whatever reason, they eventually talked to him a little
like
bit.
Once. I think they did Ross once, maybe.
But
they were very
not
hesitant.
much.
It's not you.
And I was calling one of the wrong names.
Oh, we'll see. That I
think
can
I was just
understand.
offending everybody.
Yeah, you were offended.
Yeah, he was using the wrong name. And then, so we were messing with them. McKenna took that little EMF reader, and she was walking around that whole place with the thing. And, I mean, every now and again,
No, she was all into it.
every now and again she would get a little color, but not really when she was walking around. Like, it was pretty much always, like, would stay on green. Like, she never really got any motion. And then for whatever reason, we would move it over to Ross, and the second it pointed to Ross, specifically to him, it would go up.
Oh my gosh.
The color.
Like steady, like just stay on over the whole time.
And stay on it, the color, whenever it was pointed to him.
Like right in this area of me.
So the lady was like, is there a possibility that you could do you have, anyone in your life or a spirit that could be attached to you? And he didn't say anything, and I was like, I mean, honey, your dad would 100% be with you. I mean, yeah. And he's like, I mean, maybe my dad. And because he was real unsure at first. He was like, I mean, maybe.
Very skeptical.
Yeah, maybe my dad, but I don't really know. And she was like, well, and then she was like,
That's when she told us the brother's
Yeah, that's
her brother's
when she was
attached
like,
to her.
my brother is actually
I always have a
attached
spirit
to
with me. And that's the whole protector. That's how it all came out. The protector was a brother, and he's attached to her, and that's where that all came from, was when that happened.
So then she's like, he's probably attached to you, like, he's with you. Your father's.
Oh, okay. So the brother that was doing the choking is that lady's brother, not that. I thought y'all meant like the brother to the
like
lady.
the innkeeper's brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her
brother.
Brother with her.
Okay. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, came, and she said he's always a very protective person, and he came to be with me there, and then saw this little girl in need.
Okay.
And I'm going to protect them.
God, that gives me chills. Okay, go ahead.
It's crazy.
But so then, anyway, she's like, yeah, I think it might be your father attached to you. And so we were like, I mean, what the heck, why not, right? So we took
We stayed in there, and I kept trying to get the little kids to talk to me, and they weren't doing anything with my rods. Like, they might barely move them a little bit, but nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing like what they were getting. They were getting a lot of activity.
They were not moving at all. And so then we were like, can we take these to our room? And she was like, sure. So she let us take the EMF reader and the little rod to our room. One set. And so we all got in the bed, and Ross took them in his hands, and it was like the EMF reader was sitting in his lap, like glowing orange.
Oh my gosh.
The whole time. And when I say like, it never changed.
It went to red
back to
a
green.
few times, but it didn't go back to green.
It was like,
wow.
It stayed on that color, and I was like trying to make you understand, like, hello, your dad is literally here, like, he is with you. I believed it from the jump, and so he was like, okay, and he grabs, and so we called his mom, and we put her on. She's super into all.
Well, we started talking. I asked him if he was there.
Yeah,
first,
he
and he
tells
crossed
him.
immediately.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They never moved from us.
You
And
can
he
feel the
told
movement in your
me-
hands. You can feel it click as it turns. You
Oh.
can feel it moving, and it's like you're not moving it, and you just feel it turn, and it's going like up a hill.
He goes, Dad, are you here with me?
I called him by name.
Immediately, yes.
Oh my gosh.
And so then we called his mom to
He's just kind of emotional. I mean, I haven't talked to him
I would
in
have
years.
to say that it is.
Yeah. And so he put his mom on FaceTime. we like set up McKenna's iPad and we just like started asking him a million questions. And 2 miles, take exit. And this is the part that was wild to me. We would ask questions, and when Ross would ask the questions, he could move those rods, like his father, his bad spirit, could move the rods extremely quick. Okay? And,
we're taking this one or not?
1.6. Stay in the right 3 lanes.
And then he would give the rods to McKenna, and he would move them, but it
took a lot longer.
Really took a lot for it to even move for McKenna, and then he'd give it to me, and it took everything for it to move to me. But remember, me and McKenna had no issue talking to the kids.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, we couldn't get him to move when we were talking to his dad. And so then Ross, I said, I think maybe he's just stronger through you.
Mm-hmm.
And
we asked him the question.
Had he ever known McKenna?
He knew her, but I really think now, the way I believe it, his dad knows Ross is here to watch McKenna, and he has faith in that. He's not, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But
yes.
He knows that Ross doesn't have his dad. Do you know what I mean?
I do get that.
He feels like he needs to be with Ross.
I get that.
And so then Ross asked him, actually, Dad, do you want to talk to McKenna? You can't without me. And he said yes.
Take exit.
And then he said, do you want to talk to Jade that you can't without me? And he said yes. And I was like, that's it. Like, he can't, he has to talk through you. That's how he's the strongest. And so we just asked him.
We had the same birthday. We were very, very close.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It was so. And so his mom was on this is the part, like, literally, Ross goes, and we had her, like, setting up on FaceTime on the iPad. So she was, like, her whole face was on it. And he goes, okay, Dad, can you point to Mom over there? And she was like, I'm right here, Charles, I'm right here. And seriously, he moved both of them points to her.
And she was, like, over, so he, like, takes them and just spins them both.
Oh, my gosh.
And then
I got him to point to Jade, I got him to point to McKenna, and they were beside me, so he's having to take these rods and spin them all the way around over here.
Yeah, literally spinning them to get to them. And,
we asked a bunch of questions. We were up there for 2 hours talking to him last night. It was...
And we even asked, are you tired? And he said, no. And we were like, do you want to keep talking? And he said, yes. And, I mean, we asked him so many questions. And even, like, we did stuff, like, we were, like, testing it. Like, his mom was like, okay, I'm going to tell you, I want you to ask him. Yeah. She's like, I want you to ask him if he liked our friend so-and-so. Like, someone Ross didn't even know. She's like, ask him if he liked our friend, this person. And he's like, Dad, did you like you and Mom's friend, whoever? And he said no. And his mom was like, wow, that was the right answer. Like, little things.
Wow.
That Ross didn't know, so he couldn't have moved them. He didn't know the right thing.
Yeah.
He was like getting all the answers right, and so then we were like, wow, like, he asked him a lot of questions, like.
He got one wrong, but it was the question was a trick question, and she didn't realize when she said it. We had a house on Bandera, and the name of our street was Bandera. We called it the Bandera House.
Oh.
And she said, "Did you and I?" To my dad, she had me ask, "Did you and Mom ever go to Bandera, Texas overnight?" And he said yes. And she's like, that's not right, we didn't. And I'm like, Mom, you can't say that. We lived at the Bandera house, called it Bandera. He's not going to be able to, like, that's not a fair question. That's the only one he got wrong. But he got, I mean, it was a lot. Like, if she should get remarried, he said no. If she should date, he said yes.
Which was sweet, I thought. It's like he didn't want her to get remarried, but he was okay with her dating.
He asked if he came to her in a dream after basically my brother came back into her life, and he said yes. There was a question about the guy she dated.
Oh, briefly. I thought that one was sweet because your mom kind of cried. Yeah. How did you tell her? She said this. You asked? You said, Mom. You said, Dad, were you mad at Mom for bringing Chris into your house after you had died? And he said, no. And she was like, he would never have been mad about that. He knew Chris, and he thought Chris was a really good guy.
He was a good guy.
Then she asked, do you know the reason I broke up with Chris is because I still loved you? And he said yes. And there were so many questions. And so then we were kind of all like, do you have any questions for him? And, me, I'm like, to ask him if any of his dogs that were close to him, are they with him? And he said yes.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I asked him if he sees Jesus every day, and he said no. But then we asked if he sees God, and he said yes.
Jesus is God.
And
has he seen? Well, the question was, has he seen Jesus? Has he seen him like ever?
So it's like he doesn't see him every day, but
he has seen him.
They pass each other in the hall every now and then.
Yeah, well, so many interesting things.
Because when he died, the night before he died, we were all there holding his hand. My mom and I were there holding his hand. I was holding his hand when he died, and so the night before that happened, he was pointing to his mom on the wall, and he couldn't communicate. He couldn't really talk at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But he was pointing, and he finally said, "Mama." And he was pointing to the wall, like as if we could see her too. We couldn't see her. We obviously couldn't see her. And
My
so
grandpa did that.
I asked if there was anybody else with her whenever he passed over, and he said yes. There's more people that are waiting on him.
They were just waiting. Are you his only child?
And now I'm his firstborn son. He has two sons.
Okay.
He asked him, Dad, are you with me all the time? And he said yes.
Well, the question was if we asked if he visits Colton.
Which is his other brother.
Yeah, and I think he said no to that, didn't he?
He said he has visited him.
He's visited Colton, but he's not.
But he's not with him all the time.
Well, Colton's not in Texas anymore.
Well, that's what he knows. He knows that.
He
Why would you leave Texas?
He said he was with. He told him that he was with Ross because his mom was in New York with Colton. So
you need your parent.
So
you need a parent here.
With Ross and is with him all the time. And
that's awesome.
He said that he knew about me before Ross knew about me.
Oh my God.
And that
y'all are meant to be.
That he liked me and he thought we should get married.
He approved, yeah.
Maybe your dad did that.
I thought that
found her for you.
That part was really sweet because he said he did know me, and then Ross asked, "Do you keep an eye on Jade for me when she's not with me?" And he said yes. And he said, "Dad, did you know that Jade is pregnant?" And he said yes. And he said, "Do you know what the baby is in her belly?"
Immediate
and
yes.
He said yes.
Hard cross, yeah.
And he said, "Is it a little boy?" And he said, "No." And he said, "Is it a little girl?" And I mean, yes.
Hard yes, yeah.
You got a little Andy with an eye.
I asked that question so
Ross
many
asked
times.
the question about 10 times, and every
Are
time
you
he's
sure
like,
it's not
yes.
a little boy?
But then, you know what?
That's incredible.
But then, you know what he asked? He said, "Will me and Jade
Ever have a little boy?
have a little boy?" And he said yes.
Oh my God!
And so it just means that this first one isn't, I think. But that he said that we will.
I would have given anything to be there.
And as this stuff's going on, my mom's on the iPad, so she's seeing through the video, and there's stuff behind us going on the walls. She's like, oh my gosh, there's stuff, she said stuff forming on the wall, and she's trying to screenshot it, and she said that there's orbs moving, behind us. We couldn't see it though.
You had stuff moving around behind you?
I got a picture of one going into me.
I'm gonna need all of that.
There's a photo that we took of Ross, and literally, if you hold it down and do the live of it, this orb literally goes into Ross, like soul almost. It's like, and I swear it's that.
Oh my God, you guys! I need all of that. I need all of the backup.
I asked before I did that. I said, I said, I wish there was. I was talking out loud. I wish there was a way we could get more than just yes or no answers from you. And I think he said yes at that point. And I said, is there a way? And he said yes. How can we do that? Then Mom, I guess right after that is when she saw the orbs behind us.
Oh my
forming on the wall, and
gosh!
she said they were. I mean, the description she had, they were quite large. And so then I got up and turned off the light, and it kind of scared. That's when we kind of got a little scared. We turned off the light, and we took the few pictures and the flash on.
Take the exit toward Heritage.
And in one of the pictures, there's an orb about this big in front of the camera, and it goes straight. It could makes a turn and goes straight into me, which is kind of crazy.
Oh my gosh!
Dust doesn't do that.
I would have stayed up and forced you to let me ask him questions all night long.
Well,
Said, "Boss, wake up! I need you to ask your dad questions."
I turned the little thing on this morning, we're sitting in bed, it turned orange immediately, and I started asking questions this morning.
Dad, are we having a little girl? And he said, yes. Like, I told you 15 times. I don't know how many times I need to tell you. So he said, we asked him if he feels good there all the time. And he said, yes.
So in the closet of that room, and a very bright orb was in there, and it was moving like all over that room in that closet, and it was very, very bright, like bright.
Incredible.
He asked him. It was sweet. I even teared up a little bit. I mean, he asked him.
I'm his favorite.
The minute you saw Jade, did you know she was the one I would marry? And he said yes.
And then we said, did you know Jade before I knew Jade? He said yes.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool.
And then after
that's overwhelming.
I'm not scared. I was like, I'm not scared at all. Like, now we know that your dad is, like, watching over us. Like, anything can happen. You know, like, it was so.
A couple things that didn't make it into this recording was that Ross asked his dad if he was happy, and the answer was yes. Then he asked, do you miss us? And Charlie, who is his dad, said no. So Ross asked, is that because you're always with us? And Charlie said yes. So I thought that was a really cool exchange.
Yeah.
Ross also said that his mom said that there were things moving around behind them. You heard that in the audio. And he mentions a picture of an orb going into him. Amy sent that picture to us, and we'll see if we can upload it to Instagram and get it over on Facebook. Normally, Kelly, we would just be like, well, it's probably a dust orb or something like that. But because of what is going on with the communication and his mom seeing stuff, because, you know, they're doing the FaceTime thing,
right,
maybe this orb was paranormal in nature.
Could be.
So I'm not going to say for sure, but I know even on shows like Ghost Adventures, there's many times when Zach will say, you know, this looks like it might be something. And it's usually occurring about the time that they're getting something else going on that they can record on equipment. And it looks like it's going into a person. So it's the same kind of thing with this.
And Karen wrote on TripAdvisor, OMG, I stayed there last night and what a night it was. I saw a door move even with the door stop on. We listened to white noise and Spirit spoke through the white noise and guessed cards that we picked from a deck.
That's very interesting. I've never tried that trick before.
Yeah, I haven't either. I saw an orb or something follow one of the young girls that was staying with her grandmother. You've got to see the little bear. I'm guessing it's a Boo Bear?
That's what I'm thinking based on what she's going to describe.
When it's turned on and you touch it, it speaks. Well, it was speaking without anyone touching it. I would recommend anyone that is interested in the hereafter to check it out. Shelley was awesome. She stayed the night with us along with a couple other ghost hunters. Check it out. There are no TVs or phones in the hotel. It truly is like stepping back in time. Do not expect to sleep too much as there is activity all night long.
Mamie wrote on TripAdvisor, my friend and I decided to stay at Miss Molly's because of its close proximity to the nightlife and also because we'd heard of the ghost stories. We stayed in the cowboy room and were the only guests there that night. Within the first 10 minutes of being there, we had the cowboy room door close on us and the closet doorknob rattle when I made a joke about wanting my friend to go open the closet door. Somebody was playing.
Sounds like it.
We immediately went to dinner, and when we came back, our keys were moved across the room. From then on, we knew the ghosts were definitely just pranksters. Later, we found the leather review book that people write in and started reading their stories on the couch and kept hearing banging and shuffling in the second bathroom. We never checked because we were chicken, but we later found out that someone was found stabbed in the bathtub a long time ago.
Oh, my.
And I didn't find any stories about that, but I had heard that a couple people had been murdered there, so...
Dance Patty wrote on TripAdvisor, Miss Molly's is a cozy old bed and breakfast. They do not serve breakfast anymore, so perhaps it is a bed and bath now.
And shared bath at that.
There you go. We stayed because we wanted to stay in a haunted hotel, and we got our wish. We stayed in room number 3. One bed had a spirit sit on it in the middle of the night. The other bed was shaken by a spirit in the middle of the night. The cowboy room gave a good scare. As we entered it, the door slammed on us, and I do mean slammed. Later, our infrared picture showed a silhouette of a cowboy by the furthest bed. It was an exciting night.
Former brothels have a tendency to be haunted because of the nature of the business and the violent history that could be connected to them. We don't know much about that history here, but clearly there are some unexplained things happening here. And I know most of the information that they have come from psychics, which is why I didn't share it, because I don't know that it's reliable because I don't have anything else to back it up.
Sure.
Anybody can walk through a place and say, oh yeah, there was a prostitute that got murdered in here and blah, 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 blah. And on top of that, it seems that Ross got the opportunity to talk to his father through the veil.
So cool.
Which is the coolest thing about it all. Good golly, is Miss Molly's bed and breakfast haunted? That is for you to decide. Well, thank you to Amy and her family for sharing their stories with us.
Definitely.
This has been on my list for a while, and I just hadn't gotten around to it, so it was perfect timing. And what was really cool about it is Jerry had shared a bunch of the pictures that they took at Miss Molly's on his social media, so I could envision what everything looked like. And I believe Jerry recorded a Hillbilly Dead Time Stories on Miss Molly's.
Very cool.
So check that out. Also, we'd love to have you check out our website at historygoesbump.com, and if you want to send us some feedback, you can do that at historygoesbump@gmail.com. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode is brought to you by our executive producers.
Dispatches from the Grave Digger.
We want to welcome into the cemetery Rachel Tim. We're going to be burying you in a chest tomb.
Thank you so much for supporting History Goes Bump.
Sweet dreams.
So, Kelly, before we jump into the show,
Yes?
I was having a little bit of fun because we're talking about Miss Molly. So I was like, good golly, Miss Molly. And
Sure like to ball.
And I thought the words were sure like to fall. I'd never known what the exact words were. So I looked them up. It's good golly, Miss Molly, sure like to ball. Woo! And then
How did that go again?
that was my little Richard. So then you were like, huh, that doesn't sound like it's
Appropriate?
yeah. And you're right.
Scandalous.
So I looked it up, and it says, like most of Little Richard's songs, this contains a lot of innuendo, sure like to ball, but most people were too busy listening to the music to notice or didn't get the reference. At the time, the most common meaning for bawling was dancing. Only later did it become a popular euphemism for oral sex.
Oh boy.
And I'm sure that's what he was talking about.
These are formed when dripping or flowing water. Wather?
The most famous and popular spot in Fort Worth, Texas is the Stockyards. Stockyards?
Stockades?
It's really popular with the criminals, and people love to go over there and throw a bunch of
Lock
fruit
'em
and
up.
vegetables at them, especially the rotten tomatoes. Anyway, it's early in the morning, Kelly, so I'm a little off.
Yeah, this is probably the earliest we've ever recorded, but we're trying to get a jump on things. At this time in America, the railway, there it is again. The first meatpacking plant, more, but I love meat, so it's a more.
If you want to call it a moor, you can, even though I think it is pronounced armor.
The bathrooms have iron tubs, pedestal stinks.
That's
It's a
why
communal
that's
bathroom.
why
It
you-
does stink.
I was just going to say that's why you don't like the communal bathroom, because the pedestals stink.
Oh, God. The bathrooms have iron tubs, I'm going to do it again. I could feel it coming out of my mouth. Pedestal stink.
You even focusing, you did it. She's like, okay, I'm going to focus. Emphasize the T, Kelly.
The bathrooms have iron tubs, pedestal sinks, and pull chain toilets.
She got it.
Miss Molly's is a cozy
He's a cozy
It's a
place.
koozie cozy.
Koozie cozy.
Cozy koozie.
It's a
Keep your
koozie
beer
old bed
cold.
breakfast.